SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries Stage Fright. Chapter 23. That's one of the drawbacks of the private eye business. The hours are brutal. You may work all day, you may work all night. You may work all day and all night. You don't just punch out at the end of your shift and call it a day. You don't get to decide when you work. The case decides when you work. And the case never sleeps. Back at the theater, Sharpie ran the Sea Hag number one more time. In the house, Martin Dorado, he leaned toward Emma and asked, "So, do you think the song could end the show?" "Me?" Emma asked, surprised. "You're asking me?" "Yes," the director said. "I'm asking you. You're my assistant, aren't you? I'm desperate for an ending and I'd like to hear someone else's opinion." "Well," Emma said carefully, "I don't think you can't thank me 'cause I'm floating to the top is the finale you're looking for." "Why not?" Dorado asked. I'm not positive enough," she said. "I mean, it's got a positive message, but it's sung by two sea hags. I don't think the audience wants to leave the theater with the image of hideous sea hags stuck in their heads." The director sighed. "Yes, I agree. But if this isn't the ending of the show, what is? The fair maiden and the monster number?" "Nope," they both said at the same time, both letting out a chuckle. "You have good instincts, Emma," Dorado said. Emma smiled sweetly. Sandy and SpongeBob slipped back into the Drippy Lane Theater shortly before rehearsal ended. They hid between two rows of seats near the back of the house, lying on the floor so they wouldn't be seen. From their hiding places, they could hear the cast members telling each other good night as they left. The director and his assistant were the last to go. "Good night, Emma," Dorado said. "Good night, Uncle Martin," Emma said. As soon as the words were out of her mouth, she regretted them. There was a moment of cold silence, and the director hissed, "Don't call me that!" SpongeBob and Sandy looked at each other. "Uncle Martin?" Sandy whispered. Before she left, Emma carried the single bulbed lamp known as the ghost light out to the center of the stage and switched it on. The ghost light was an old theatrical tradition. Some people thought they were meant to scare ghosts away. Others thought they were supposed to light the stage for the ghosts to perform at night so they'd stay happy and leave the actors alone. But most people agreed ghost lights were just for safety, so anyone who came in to turn out the lights wouldn't fall into the orchestra pit on their way to the switches. As she left, Emma closed the stage door behind her. The theater went silent, lit only by the single bare bulb on the stage. "Now what?" Sandy whispered to SpongeBob as they lay on the floor. "We wait," he whispered back. "And listen, my guess is that the culprit might have stayed behind after rehearsal, hiding somewhere, so he or she will emerge from their hiding place to do their mischief. And then we'll have them." They lay there in the dark, waiting and listening. Creak! The sound came from the backstage area. Was it just a normal nighttime creak made by an old building? Or was someone walking backstage? Creak! Creak! It sounded like walking or creeping to SpongeBob. "Let's go!" he whispered to Sandy. They jumped to their feet, hurried out of the row of seats, and ran down the left aisle toward the stage. They saw no one. Suddenly, the ghost light went out. Someone must have yanked its cord, pulling the plug out of the socket. Without the ghost light, the theater was plunged into pitch blackness. SpongeBob wished he'd brought a flashlight. "Who's there?" SpongeBob called out. "Show yourself!" There was no answer. "We know you're there," Sandy said. "You won't get away." She whispered to SpongeBob, "I'll turn on the lights. You—" But before she could finish her sentence, they both heard the sound of someone running across the stage, down the steps into the house, and up the right aisle. They both took off after the runner, stumbling in the dark, whacking their shins against the hard metal legs of the theater's cushioned seats. Ooh. "Ouch!" SpongeBob cried. They reached the right aisle and ran toward the lobby, hearing the door swing open and closed. Chasing the culprit into the dark lobby, they heard feet running up the stairs and another door opening and closing. "They're going in the balcony," Sandy told SpongeBob. Groping in the dark, they found the stairs, ran up to the balcony level, and pushed through the doors. Just inside, they stopped listening. Silence. "You take that side," Sandy whispered, "and I'll take this side." "Sandy, I can't see where you're pointing," SpongeBob whispered. "Oh, right," Sandy said. "Okay, face toward the stage. I'll go left, you go right." Holding his hands in front of him to keep from bumping into anything in the dark, SpongeBob made his way as best as he could around the balcony. Unable to see, he tried bringing his other senses to their highest pitch, feeling, listening, even smelling. Ahead of him and to the right, he heard a sound. Click! It sounded like a latch of some kind. He managed to find his way to the balcony side wall and felt his way along it until he found a small, low door. Fumbling in the gloom, he got the little door open, bent down, and slipped through. He found himself in a narrow, tight space. Running his hands along the wall in front of him, he felt horizontal boards spaced evenly apart. Like the steps of a ladder, he started to climb. In the darkness, SpongeBob had no idea what he was climbing up into. Soon the wooden ladder steps ended. Feeling around, he could tell he was in a low-ceilinged space like an attic. It smelled dusty. He didn't know, but SpongeBob was in the low attic that ran the length of the house over the seats. From up here, workers would change the light bulbs in the ceiling below. "Hello?" he called out. "Who's there?" No answer. He decided to stay by the ladder and wait. If that was the only way to get up into the attic, then it was the only way to get out. The saboteur would have to come back this way. SpongeBob was prepared to wait until morning if he had to. What he didn't realize is that there was another way out of the attic at the opposite end of the low-ceiling space, a way that led back down to the stage. Below, Sandy had made her way down the aisle to the front of the balcony and was working her way across, holding on to the smooth railing, but then she heard someone run across the stage. "Stop!" she shouted. The running continued. She thought she heard a second set of footsteps, heavier footsteps, join the first. For just a moment she even thought she could make out the shape of a large figure on the dark stage, a figure as large as the monster they'd seen in Old Man Jenkins's field. "SpongeBob!" Sandy yelled, unsure where her partner was in the dark theater. "They're down on the stage, and they're getting away!" When SpongeBob heard the muffled sound of Sandy calling, he scrambled down the ladder, through the small door, and into the balcony just in time to hear the distant thud of the stage door closing. Thunk! Stay tuned for chapter 24 coming up soon.